Are you a thoughtful leader? Maybe you are. Maybe you think you are. Let's find out. I'm Mindy Gibbins-Klein. I'm author of The Thoughtful Leader and host of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. Thoughtful leadership is all about thought leadership that goes above and beyond. Thought leadership that is truly new and original, exciting, disruptive, maybe even groundbreaking. Because let's face it, we need to raise the bar. My guests and I are absolutely obsessed with finding truly original thought leadership, and I'm going to bring you so many exciting ideas and opportunities, things for you to think about, and chances for you to push your thinking that you'll be very glad you tuned in. So thanks so much for checking out Thoughtful Leadership and the Thoughtful Leader podcast. I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. How open are you? And how open do you want to be? This is the real question. I'm not sure we can really assess ourselves on our openness unless we start to look at different ways we can be open and different contexts. So, of course, as a thoughtful leader, you probably want to have a piece of paper in front of you, unless you're listening in the car or in bed with your eyes closed or something. But at some point, you may want to jot down some of the things that I'm talking about today, because openness is a really, really important characteristic of a thoughtful leader. And I think when I say that word, openness, because I talk about this a lot with colleagues, clients, friends, they think they know what it means, but it's not until we delve into the different ways and areas where we can be open that we really begin to understand the nuances. So let's explore. Thank you for joining me, by the way. I really appreciate all of my listeners, all of my viewers. We try to give good value every episode, and hopefully this one will also satisfy your needs for learning and thoughtfulness. Okay, so openness. This is something that people think is their personality. So let's just dispel a myth. He's an open person. She's open. That is a choice, in my opinion. In fact, many aspects of your personality are choices. Did you know that? I do talk about this in my TED Talk. And it's funny and also not so funny that we think our personalities are fixed. Certainly, our behavior is not fixed, but equally, how we show up in the world really is not just one way or another. And it's flexible and it's capable of being modified. So that's the first thing, that even if you really love everything I talk about in this episode, refrain from saying things like, I'm open, I am an open person, because it's not whether you are or aren't. So we'll look at all these different scenarios. So the first scenario that I would like to talk about is being open with people in a one-to-one conversation. One-to-one. I don't know if anything has changed in your interactions with people, but the pandemic created lots of different issues and also opportunities. So, for example, many people, when they were not commuting as much or traveling as much, had more time on their hands. For some of those people, maybe yourself included, they used a lot of that time to have conversations with people. Yes, there were big Zoom meetings and a lot of things went online. We'll talk about that after. But one-to-one, some people had more and some people had fewer conversations. But if you have been more open about your feelings because of situations like the pandemic, just, is that something that is going to continue? Because as we see things opening up, see what I did there? As, travel and events and activities open up, we can retain some of the good stuff that has been created. Now, if you were a person who suffered a lot during the pandemic and you did not choose to have a lot of conversations, and in fact, if you suffered from mental and emotional health issues, I really, really feel for you. And I think you probably will have experienced this in a different way. But I'm hoping that there were still people you were open with. I really hope that you found a way through the biggest challenges and that, you're on the other side or coming out the other side. If not, by the way, there are lots and lots of resources. I have many resources, friends, contacts, people I can refer. Please get in touch if you still feel affected by what's happened over the past few years. For those listeners who are thinking about their one-to-one interactions and who are nodding along, nodding their heads about having open and honest conversations, having more time for those conversations, is that something that added value to your life? And I hope so. I always feel that I'm quite open. And one of the things that I find is I don't have enough one-to-one conversations. That might sound very strange to you, but I have a lot of contacts. I have friends, family, clients, contacts, suppliers, people I've known for a long time, people I've just met, and many, many people to keep in touch with. And lately, I've been feeling the pressure about having enough time for key people. And that, we all have different pressures. That's one of mine. And yes, I'm being open with you now intentionally so that you can see an example of this. There are people who I've shared this with. There are people who know that I'm making a conscious effort to have more and deeper conversations. It's not necessarily more. It's about a deeper conversation and being open and transparent, but with intention. Because there are some people, I'm sure you'd agree, who let it all hang out and they tell you a lot more than you want to know. And it can be a bit uncomfortable for you, not for them. They love sharing and oversharing. We're not really talking about that. In fact, this brings me to my first learning point. Well, my teaching point. It's up to you whether you learn or not. How do you want to communicate? How open do you want to be when you're having a conversation with someone? And if you feel that you've been holding yourself back, you've been too busy, or there's been no opportunity to have these deep conversations, do you want to have more of them? And if so, and here's the key point, what is it that you're not sharing that you would like to share with trusted friends, business colleagues, relatives, professionals? What is it that you're not sharing that you would like to share? And, I can't answer that for you. I've already shared one thing. I may share more as we go through this episode. But the thing is, it has to be coming from you. As a thoughtful leader, you can think about these things and you can act in a conscious way. You can make positive change in your behavior and the results that creates. So it's just a gut feeling, really. Do you feel that you could be more open in one-to-one conversations? Let's talk about those group situations, because there are small groups, there are large groups. There's the group that you've been invited to speak to as a speaker, facilitator, etc. There's groups where you find yourself addressing a group. Usually you knew about it, sometimes not. And I think it's very interesting that we do have a different way of communicating when we're talking to a group of people. I must stress people who are listening. So if you're trying to attract people's attention and they're not paying attention, that's a different story. But for example, if it's in person or online, if you're part of a business meeting and people are going around the whole group and each person has a chance to share, I think we share differently when it's a group of people and not one-to-one, because we're thinking about all the different people that we're addressing, all those different personality styles and how they show up and how well we know them, how big the group is. For some people, that's a big deal. I don't really care that, if I'm addressing 2 people, that's a group. And if I'm addressing 1,000, it's really no different. I make the distinction between 1-to-1 and more than one. Let's call it more than one. But the groups that have gone from in-person to virtual, there's a whole lot to think about there. You do get, when there's video, you do get a lot of the senses. You get a lot of the inflection, of course, that you'd get with audio only, but you also get the nonverbals. I personally think that on a video, if you're watching the video, thank you, because most people just listen to the audio. So you want to look up the Thoughtful Leader podcast on YouTube if you want to watch the video. I digress. The thing about video is it can be nearly as good and nearly, obviously, I'm a big hugger. Not obviously. I'm just saying, obviously, certain things are not the same. So I like to hug people. And moving to virtual, especially when things were only virtual, that was challenging for me. And I really struggled to get the hug virtual. I aim to do it in lots of ways, but let's face it, it's not the same. So ask yourself, is this something that you can address, where you have an opportunity to put your video on? You can be a lot more open with other aspects, not just what you say. You can, apparently, my face is like a plate glass window, and I show pretty much all my emotions. I've tried to change it over the years. And, I know I said you can change most things. That's been challenging for me. And I finally decided that I like being open and having an open face. On the flip side, if I'm struggling with something or I have a challenging emotion, people see that as well. I'm very smiley, but I don't smile all the time. And I aim to show a lot through my voice. As a speaker, I have a lot of respect for my voice and what it does and the influence it can create, both positive and negative. So, I have all these things going on in my mind. This is what I think about. What do you want to think about when addressing a group? Have you been freaked out by the size of a group or certain people who have their videos off and you don't know if they're looking at you, paying attention, or having a nap while you're speaking? Do you get upset when people are not looking at the camera or they're obviously multitasking or doing some kind of distracting activity? What can you do about it? Well, I believe you can only really focus on yourself and continue to deliver your message. But having thought about it in advance, I find gives us all a power that we need when we're in any kind of group situation. It's not as simple as 1-to-1. It's not. It's more complex. So that's the next bit. Here's another situation where you may want to ask yourself, are you being open? And that is being open to feedback. I don't know how old you are, but when I was in my 20s, I thought I knew it all. I thought I knew everything about everything. Oh, my goodness. And I don't think I was very open to feedback. Oh, the positive kind, sure. Mindy, that was great. You did a great job with it. I soaked all that up. But the minute there was anything remotely critical, my defenses went up. And I know this because of things that happened in my career, too numerous to go into today. Oh, gosh, when I look back at how I used to behave and the fact that I wasn't open because I wasn't listening to or acting on the feedback. I just rejected it if it was something that didn't jive with what I thought about myself. What about you? And, it doesn't matter what age you are, because I still find this happening. I think it's when it's unsolicited feedback. And I really, really aim not to deliver unsolicited feedback myself. However, I've done it twice in the past week. The difference is I thought about it. I put a lot of thought into whether I was going to share something with that person, how I was going to share it, asking if they had time, asking if they were open to feedback, which, by the way, is a very silly question because people will say yes because they want to hear what it is you have to say. We're curious as human beings. But I don't think many people want to hear criticism. It's just my view. Some people are more evolved or enlightened than I am, but you say yes because you're curious. So, ask. It shows, it shows that respect for that person and their time. So this is an interesting area when you're on the receiving end and somebody's giving you feedback. Are you really and truly open to it? Well, I can't answer that for you, but I can share that at certain times of the day, I'm more open to feedback than other times of the day. So if this helps you at all, great. In the morning, I'm a morning person. I've got lots of energy. I'm bubbly. I'm excited. I feel strong. So, of course, you want all of those resources at your fingertips. And if somebody says, can I chat with you about something? I think I react in a better way in the mornings. In the afternoon, I really aim not to have a big slump. I watch my nutrition and hydration. Sometimes I've not had the most resourceful lunch, or I've had a stressful day and I've let it build up and I haven't remembered to, use all the techniques that we have available to us. And then someone will approach me and I won't be quite as open or resilient or whatever. No, you don't need to be resilient. You just need to listen. In the evenings, I really need to watch what I say, how I interact with people. Getting up so early in the morning, by the time we get to the evening, and I don't nap, maybe I should, but I'm not at my best. And I know this. And so I'm aware and I'm thoughtful about the situations I put myself in. People will ask me if I have time for a call at 8 or 9 p.m. And many times I'll say, well, can we pick a different day at a different time? That I know I'm not going to be at my best. And I rarely do client work in the evenings, for example. That's just something that I choose to do or not do. So thinking about feedback, jot down when you have a chance, not if you're driving, not if you've got your eyes closed, jot down some areas where you would like to be more open to people's feedback, where you know things are not going the way you want, and you will welcome respectful, thoughtful feedback. You will, in fact, invite that feedback. If you put a little thought into this, you'll be amazed at how people respond. Many people want to give feedback, but they are thoughtful, so they don't approach you. There was a recent situation where I thought a lot of people would be thinking the same thing. And I asked the person, do you have time? Are you open to feedback? And as I started, I just said, I think a lot of other people are thinking this and struggling with this, but they may not be saying. That was the way I chose to deal with it. I can't say everybody has been, frustrated with the situation. No point, anyway. It was about my personal feedback, but I did kind of, include other people as a possibility. So have a think about that. Do you really want to be better at your job, be a better person, evolve, grow? This is personal development at its best. And the way to develop is to continually push the boundaries and ask yourself these big questions like, how open are you and how open do you want to be? And then answer them. Sit quietly somewhere and answer these questions. Journal, make notes, just jot down a couple of bullets of situations that you're in at the moment where you feel you could be more open. I talk about this in 24 Karat Bold, where it's in the engagement strategy. It's what you feel. If you choose to engage in a more open way, that's your choice. Whether somebody meets you in the middle or meets you where they are, that's up to them. But at least you can be thoughtful and intentional about this. So we have a couple of minutes left, and there are so many other situations where you may want to be open. But of course, knowing you and why you follow me, it's for my tips on writing, I think. Thoughtful writing, thoughtful leadership through your writing. So think about your writing, then think again. Think before you post. Think again and again. There's something about putting a thought into words and putting it out there in writing, even spoken, even this episode, even this podcast, it's kind of putting the stake in the ground and, planting it there. But there's something about the written word, and I say this all the time, it requires more thought. If you are sharing about yourself, your opinions, your stories and experiences, I think you want to put extra thought into how open you're going to be. You don't want to overshare, but equally, I don't think you want to hold back to the point where people feel that you're not human, or that's an extreme, but that you're not really giving of yourself. There's a spectrum, of course, and you may want to experiment with this. This is one of my favorite areas to coach my thoughtful leader clients. If you want to know more about this is one of the strategies that we work on, and it's very subtle. And it's not obvious, and there isn't a right and wrong, a black and white way of looking at it. Things like engagement and how open you are in your one-to-one group written engagement, any engagement, well, that, in my opinion, does require a strategy. When I called it an engagement strategy, I kind of got laughed off the stage at an event. Seriously. And there was a bit of a discussion. And I was glad for that. Luckily, I was open to that. But equally, I wanted to put my views across. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of the work that we do, what I've written about in not just 24 Karat Bold, but the Thoughtful Leader. Everything I do has that thought backing it up, thinking about how I want to say something, thinking about the person receiving the message or the group of people. So I really aim to live this. Do I always get it right? No. Am I always open to learning? Most of the time. That's the honest answer. Really, most of the time. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I love sharing my thoughts with you. I love bringing my guests onto the podcast, and they share their experience, their thoughts, their opinions, and hopefully some tips to live a better life, have a better career, run your business in a better way. But most importantly, feel better about yourself and the way you show up in the world. And you can be as open as you want to be. This is the choice. So I hope you choose well. And I do look forward to seeing and hearing and experiencing this extra openness if you choose to do that. And remember, if you have any questions, just come back to me. But in the meantime, have a lovely open attitude and a lovely open day. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Thoughtful Leader, and I hope it's inspired you to be more thoughtful as a leader in your business. Please consider subscribing and leaving a review. An important question for you. Do you want to create a culture of thought leadership in your organization? My best-selling book, The Thoughtful Leader, is available now on Amazon and many other sites in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. Please visit www.mindygk.com for more great content. That's www.mindygk.com. Speak to you again soon.